This is the Sabbath School lesson for the second quarter, 2021.
Lesson 5 for April 24 to 30, Children of the Promise, and read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Friday, April 30. It was no light test, Ellen White writes in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 126, that was thus brought upon Abraham, no small sacrifice that was required of him. But he did not hesitate to obey the call. He had no question to ask concerning the land of promise. God has spoken, and his servant must obey. The happiest place on earth for him was the place where God would have him to be. End of quote. When Abram entered Canaan, the Lord appeared to him and made it clear that he was to sojourn in a land that would be given to his descendants, as you read in Genesis 12, verse 7. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your descendants I will give this land," and there he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. God repeated this promise several times, and we'll have a look at some of those in Genesis 13, verses 14 and 15. And the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, "Lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, westward. For all the land which you see I will give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered." And verse 17, "Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you." And Genesis chapter 15, and verses 13, 16, and 18. Verse 13, "Then he said to Abram, Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them. They will afflict them 400 years. And verse 16, "But in the fourth generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete." And verse 18, "On the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates." And Genesis 17, verse 8, "Also I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God." And Genesis 28, verses 13 and 15, "And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your descendants." And verse 15, "Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." And then Genesis 35 and verse 12, "The land which I gave Abraham and Isaac I give to you, and to your descendants after you I give this land." Some 400 years later, in fulfillment of the promise, the Lord announced to Moses that he would bring Israel out of Egypt into a land flowing with milk and honey. The promise was in Genesis 15, verse 13, "Then he said to Abram, Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge afterward. They shall come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete." And then we read about the land of milk and honey in Exodus chapter 3 and verse 8. "So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites." And then verse 17, "And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey." And Exodus 6, verse 8, "And I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as a heritage. I am God." Repeated the promise to Joshua in Joshua 1, verse 3, "Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said," to Moses. And in David's day it was largely but not completely fulfilled, as we read in these following passages. Genesis 15, verses 18 to 20. "On the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I will give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites." And 2 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 14. "After this it came to pass that David attacked the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Metheg-ammah from the hand of the Philistines. Then he defeated Moab, forcing them down to the ground. He measured them off with a line. With 2 lines he measured off those to be put to death, and with 1 full line those to be kept alive. So the Moabites became David's servants and brought tribute. David also defeated Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, the king of Zobah, as he went to recover his territory at the river Euphrates. David took with him 1,000 chariots, 700 horsemen, and 20,000 foot soldiers. Also, David hamstrung all the chariot horses, except that he spared enough of them for 100 chariots. When the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David killed 22,000 of the Syrians. Then David put garrisons in Syria of Damascus, and the Syrians became David's servants and brought tribute. So the Lord preserved David wherever he went. And David took the shields of gold that had belonged to the servants of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. Also from Betah and from Berothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took a large amount of bronze. When Toi, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated all the army of Hadadezer, then Toi sent Joram his son to King David to greet him and bless him, because he had fought against Hadadezer and defeated him, for Hadadezer had been at war with Toi, and Joram brought with him articles of silver, articles of gold, and articles of bronze. King David also dedicated these to the Lord, along with the silver and gold that he had dedicated from all the nations which he had subdued, from Syria, from Moab, from the people of Ammon, from the Philistines, from Amalek, and from the spoil of Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David made himself a name when he returned from killing 18,000 Syrians in the valley of Salt. He also put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants, and the Lord preserved David wherever he went. And 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 21. So Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines, as far as the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. And 1 Chronicles chapter 19, and there we read verses 1 to 19. It happened after this that Nahash, the king of the people of Ammon, died, and his son reigned in his place. Then David said, I will show kindness to Hanun, the son of Nahash, because his father showed kindness to me. So David sent messengers to comfort him concerning his father. And David's servants came to Hanun in the land of the people of Ammon to comfort him. And the princes of the people of Ammon said to Hanun, Do you think that David really honours your father because he has sent comforters to you? Did his servants not come to you to search and to overthrow and to spy out the land? Therefore Hanun took David's servants, shaved them, and cut off their garments in the middle at their buttocks, and sent them away. Then some went and told David about the men, and he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Wait at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return. When the people of Ammon saw that they had made themselves repulsive to David, Hanun and the people of Ammon sent 1,000 talents of silver to hire for themselves chariots and horsemen from Mesopotamia, from Syrian Makkah, and from Zobah. So they hired for themselves 32,000 chariots, with the king of Makkah and his people, who came and encamped before Medeba. Also the people of Ammon gathered together from their cities and came to battle. Now when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the army of the mighty men. Then the people of Ammon came out and put themselves in battle array before the gate of the city, and the kings who had come were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the battle line was against him before and behind, he chose some of Israel's best and put them in battle array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he put under the command of Abishai his brother, and they set themselves in battle array against the people of Ammon. Then he said, "If the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the people of Ammon are too strong for you, then I will help you. Be of good courage, and let us be strong for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what is right in his sight." So Joab and the people who were with him drew near for the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. When the people of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fleeing, they also fled before Abishai his brother, and entered the city. So Joab went to Jerusalem. Now when the Syrians saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they sent messengers and brought the Syrians who were before the river, and Shoshak, the commander of Hadadezer's army, went before them. When it was told David, he gathered all Israel, crossed over the Jordan, and came upon them, and set up in battle array against them. So when David had set up in battle array against the Syrians, they fought with him. Then the Syrians fled before Israel, and David killed 7,000 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers of the Syrians, and killed Shoshak, the commander of the army. And when the servants of Hadadezer saw that they were defeated by Israel, they made peace with David and became his servants. So the Syrians were not willing to help the people of Ammon any more. Now read Hebrews 11, verses 9 and 10 and 13 to 16. These verses make it clear that Abraham and the other faithful patriarchs viewed Canaan as a symbol or a foreshadowing of the ultimate settled home of God's redeemed people. Hebrews 11, verses 9 and 10. By faith he dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And then verses 13 to 17. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. In the sin situation, no permanent home is possible. Life is fleeting, like a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes, it says in James 4:14. As the spiritual descendants of Abraham, we too must realize that here we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for a city that is to come, as we've just read in Hebrews 13, verse 14. The certainty of the future life with Christ keeps us steady in this present world of change and decay. And that brings us to our two discussion questions for this week. 1. What effect should God's promise of a new earth have on our personal Christian experience? And we'll compare some texts here. First of all, Matthew 5 and verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And 2 Corinthians 4, verses 17 and 18. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. And Revelation 21, verses 9 and 10. Then one of the 7 angels, who had the 7 bowls filled with the 7 last plagues, came to me and talked with me, saying, Come, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. And Revelation 22, verse 17. And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. And let him who hears say, Come. And let him who thirsts come. Whoever desires, let him take the water of life freely. And discussion question 2. True greatness was to result from compliance with God's commands and cooperation with his divine purpose. What does this statement from the Seventh-day Adventist Bible Commentary, Volume 1, page 293, mean? And to summarize this week's lesson, promises, how precious they are to the believer. Will they be fulfilled? Faith answers yes. Inside Story. Our mission story this week is titled Trusting God or Science, and it's by Andrew McChesney of Adventist Mission. The physician showed the 3D ultrasound images to Dr. Hernando Diaz. You're a physician, he said. Here is the evidence. End the pregnancy. Hernando's pregnant wife, Erica, wept. The images showed that their baby had Potter's syndrome, a rare condition associated with kidney failure, abnormal limbs, and an unusual facial appearance, including widely separated eyes. As a physician, Hernando understood that the physician was right. But as a Christian, he wondered what to do. The baby wouldn't live if the 32-week pregnancy were ended, but there might be hope if they waited. Should he trust science or God? God will have the last word, he said. Complications beset the pregnancy, and the physician recommended a caesarean section to save Erica's life. Hernando and Erica prayed. Their church prayed. Family and hospital staff rebuked Erica for not ending the pregnancy. 2 days before the caesarean section, a 3D ultrasound showed that nothing had changed. That night, Erica had a dream. She saw a baby boy playing in a basket and heard a voice telling her husband, Take your son, he is a gift from God. You shall name him Samuel David. Raise him according to God's word. Erica and Hernando took the dream as a sign that the baby might survive. They bought baby supplies for the first time. The next day, however, they braced for the worst. The physician said that he would do the caesarean section, cut the umbilical cord, and expect the baby to die within minutes. Caesarean sections usually take 20 to 30 minutes. Hernando waited in the waiting room for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. His anxiety grew as 60 minutes passed. Suddenly he heard screams. They weren't his wife's. They weren't their babies. They were the sound of the physician and nurses screaming in surprise. They had expected a deformed baby, but instead found a perfect baby boy. It is impossible, the physician exclaimed. This is a miracle. The parents determined to raise Samuel David according to God's word, and today they credit him for leading them and many others to Jesus. While seeking medical treatment for the boy's subsequent kidney problems, they learned about and joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Today, Hernando works as a physician at the Adventist Medical Center on the campus of Columbia Adventist University in Medellin, Colombia. Samuel is a healthy 8-year-old boy. We decided to trust in God even though almost everyone was against us, said Hernando, 60, and there's a lovely photo of Hernando smiling here on the left. God's ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. Many people have come to the feet of Jesus after hearing Samuel's story. This quarter's 13th Sabbath offering will help open a missionary training centre at Columbia Adventist University in Columbia, South America. This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. It's supported by the Sabbath School Department and Hope Channel Australia and is rebroadcast by Christian Record Services and through podcasts at It Is Written in the United States, Hope Channel Germany, and through Apple iTunes and SoundCloud. Remember, God is always faithful.